I'm just gonna just do it.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, we're just about ready to start. Everyone got their cell phone off or something or something like that. Oh, I guess not.
We're just making sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, I did it just now.
You know, unless it's got a really neat ringtone. It's lovely to go out in the middle, go off in the middle of a concert.
That's right. Did you guys see anything?
I don't want to start early until 5:59.
We don't want to set a precedent.
Someone, no. I would have to change my lyrics and every month it says starting at 6, I have 3. All right. I called up order the meeting of the City of Deerheart Planning Commission on September 14th at 6 p.m. All commission members are present, and Angelina and Chad are here for the staff. Oh, Garrett's here. I'm sorry, Garrett. I forget. What can I say? Okay, we have a consent agenda with the minutes, and as you see, the minutes have been fixed. Is what we'll call it. It was just the title of what we're working on was what was fixed. The financial report, and we don't have any correspondence. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So,
Carrie has
So
moved. Do I have a second?
second,
Second, okay, I'll go with Russ. Russ has a second, here we spoke by. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Thank you, we're moving on. Reports from the staff. What do you have for us today?
I'll go ahead and start from the front, Commissioner. So city's been working on various things. I think that, that's out in the community now is the rate process. We have raised our water rates on the for our system. That seems to be going well, and now we're working on conservation rates, which would be rates that would be used for people that use excessive amounts of water. So is that coming right off my head there? Is that
He is trying to brace himself.
maybe a little powder? Ian's doing his best to.
You gotta eat more, Ian.
We need more officers to create the wall. Sorry about that, son. So we're working on conservation rates. Those will be discussed in the city council over the next couple of months. So that is happening. We've got a lot of code enforcement issues going on. We're probably working about, 10, 15 different situations. Most of them are being resolved just through conversation, maybe one letter. Few of them are being a little bit difficult, and so we'll just take those through the process. But those are the things such as sign issues, lighting. We have some noxious weeds going on. We have a couple of potential illegal rentals in single-family dwelling areas that are using their homes as duplexes. So we're investigating those, and those are taking some time. Business licenses, making sure people are using those. So we've been quite busy, and Angelina has been excellent in keeping those things going. So that's taking some time. Again, back to water conservation is still a concern. So we're really encouraging people to use different landscaping programs or devices. That would be the biggest savings for us. We're also working on a project with up to the minute reading. So we may be updating all of our meters to be able to read them from here, minute by minute, so that we'd be able to catch larger leaks and problems within the water system a little bit sooner, so working on that as well. Public Works has been busy, they're just taking care of the water system, they're exercising valves, they've just done some painting around town. The working council goals, with the city council and, a water memorandum of understanding with the city of Gerhard. Vacation rentals, seem to be going pretty smoothly, I don't think we've had really any, complaints of lately that I can recall. And we are down to 68 active rentals. We lost another one within the last month.
Where did it start at when it peaked?
I think it was up in the 90s. Yeah, when we opened it up, it was between, I think it was somewhere between 90 and 100. So
Was that the number of permits or was that the number approved? My memory is like 82 or 83 were actually approved.
No, we actually approved close to 90.
Okay.
And just over time and through sales, those have been evaporating. Yeah, not for any reason. We had one that missed the deadlines for the application process. We tried to work with them. It just was so bad that we couldn't move forward with it, but they're fine with it. We're working on a project. We got a grant for $100,000 to replace some of the sidewalk on Pacific Way. So we'll be we're getting some bids for that. We may see some construction starting with that for the last or within the next 6 weeks.
Where's that gonna be?
That is the replacing the sidewalk that's up on the south side of Pacific Way from Marion down to the stores. It's pretty broken up and kind of falling apart. So that was what we were able to write a grant for. We actually wrote a grant for a lot more sidewalk than that little area there. And we went for the pricing at the time, and then COVID hit. We've been in this process for a long time, and the pricing just went through the roof. So we're probably getting about a third as much sidewalk as we would have originally with the price changing and everything. But we're still going to go forward with it. The money's still there. That's all I have for right now.
I have a question. About a month ago, I read in the Astorian of the Signal, that Cannon Beach was building a new police department, and they were prohibited by state law from building it in a tsunami zone. Would that same law apply to us to build a fire station in a tsunami zone?
Yeah, I haven't studied the Cannon Beach situation much, but just recently we did reach out to DLCD and the Coastal Shore Specialist to ask about what it was that was preventing them. If you remember back about 10 years ago, they put a law into place that says thou shalt not put critical infrastructure in tsunami inundation zones. Then that was repealed. Currently, and Gerhard Garrett did some research on that. He might be able to answer a little bit better, but we really can't find any restrictions.
We have our own restriction, however.
We do in our zone code
We have a tsunami overlay zone. Yes.
that states that we will not put critical infrastructure in that's under 50 feet. That was the level that Gerhard chose because that's what we can work with. Although there are exception processes for our particular ordinance. What we're doing now is we're checking the FEMA Region 10, and our building official, Leonard Braga, is doing that. And he's made some contacts and is having some conversations to find out what A, FEMA would prevent or require, and B, what the building code really says about that. But so far, we're finding that there's a likelihood that we would be able to put it in the current location if that's what the community decided after going through the exception process and the community making that decision.
Jack, would Sergeant Brown like to introduce the new officer?
We're planning on that, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think he's ready to go.
Seeing as how every so often one of these fine young men come to our house and the neighbors go, oh my gosh, the police are visiting her again.
You haven't been much of a problem with this.
Not too much. So I'm sure you already knows me, but we're here tonight as usual, but this is our new officer, this is Jeremiah. Everyone, it's
Jeremiah.
3 weeks now. And kind of let him introduce himself to you.
My name is Jeremiah. Obviously, I'm the new officer, the new guy on the block. I grew up in California. I'm just hoping to do this job as good as I can. If you guys have anything for me, any pointers or anything, feel free to talk to me whenever, and I'll take in as much advice as possible.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you for having me.
Those of you saw it on the
Now
city
you
council.
continue blocking the light though. right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Look to the left.
Yeah.
During the city council meeting, they swore him in, and Jeremiah also happens to be a volunteer firefighter with the city of Warrenton. So the entire, well, most of the fire department came down and was in here to welcome him, as well as 2 or 3 other officers from the community. So it's really interesting to see with our new chief, our new officer, and with Ian standing, you know, in place, taking care of your part, that the community is really coming together. And that's the outside community as well. We're getting a lot of help from outside agencies, so things are going really well. Thank you.
Thank you. You have anything, Angelina? No, do you have anything, Garrett?
Good evening. Yeah, I have a few things. I guess I'll start just following up briefly on the fire station discussion. Just speaking to your zoning code in particular, the planning commission has the authority to grant an exception to the restriction on critical facilities in the tsunami hazard overlay zone through a type 3 decision process. So it'd basically be like a conditional use permit decision where it's in your all's hands, and there's some specific criteria there in the tsunami hazard overlay chapter that your decision would have to be based on. So I just wanted to speak to that. But there's 3 other items to update you on. The first is that in October, we're anticipating a conditional use permit hearing for converting a tennis ball court to pickleball courts in the city's park, with the city as one of the applicants on the application. So you'll see more on that soon. The second item I wanted to update you on is that back in the fall, you all had a hearing on an R1 to R3 zone change at a property that I think has been called the Morgan Falby property, or it was the Morgan Falby zone change at 1777 Pine Ridge Road. And it was ultimately approved by City Council with several conditions limiting further subdivision, the overall site density, future use for vacation rentals. And finally, as of last month, the applicant submitted all of their documentation demonstrating compliance with the conditions. And so we've made a point to update the permit file and our other documents to reflect that. And so I just wanted to follow up on that item. That was slightly predating my time of service to you, but when that was approved in 2022. And then the third item is that I think we gave you a brief update in either July or August that the city had jointly applied with the other cities within Clatsop County and Clatsop County for a grant from DLCD, their Housing Planning Assistance Grant Program. And DLCD has notified us that the grant will be awarded to Gearhart and the other cities in Clatsop County. And the project, as a brief reminder, is going to fund several products that are going to be useful to each of the jurisdictions for planning future housing needs and policies to address those needs. So there's going to be a funding available for a buildable lands inventory for each city. There's going to be an opportunity for each city to assess some critical infrastructure issue that it has related to development capacity, or be able to focus on a particular part of the city or a potential urban growth boundary expansion area, for example. And the information that's produced through this grant project is going to sync up with the results of a statewide effort to produce housing demand forecasts for each city in the state. And so the state's going to be producing these estimates in 2024. This planning project that each of the cities is going to jointly be undertaking together is going to be taking place throughout 2024. And the result is then that in 2025, all of the cities in Clatsop County will have a strong foundation for deciding what they want to do next. There'll be up-to-date data, and it'll be up to each city to decide what they want to do. But it'll be useful that each jurisdiction is doing this together. There'll be some lessons learned. There'll be a common consultant doing the work for and with each city. And we have a process that's going to make sure that the planning commissions and the city administrators for each jurisdiction are getting updated and have some opportunities to provide input throughout the process. So I'll give you another update on this in a month. All we know now is that we've gotten awarded the grant. So I think I'll leave it at that. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Moving on, commissioners, do we have any comments from commissioners?
I just have one.
Yes, fine.
I got a call from one of the counselors asking about the tree planting thing, which is in the minutes that there was sort of a consensus, what the minutes said, that maybe we would do something about that at a later date. But that didn't make it to the council in the letter that you sent. So can we just firm that up, and can you send them, like, this is what we decided, we're not gonna deal with it now, or whatever the commission wants. So that they close the loop, because they gave that to us to work on. And if we're not interested, I feel like we should tell them that.
I don't think they gave it to us to work on. This came from Sharon. This has been on our goals list. It wasn't something that I think they gave to us to work on.
Okay. She said that she, meaning Sharon, is who
Sharon.
contacted me, said that two other counselors, Rita and Dana, had requested that we, I don't know, create a plan or not create a plan, or do a city presentation, or, you know, something to look into it. But I mean, my sense was that this group last month wasn't really
Yeah, I
particularly.
mean, I had offered to do some more on that. but,
John speaking.
But I did have the same impression that you did, that there wasn't much interest. That's why I didn't do anything further with it yet. If the commission chooses to, you know, want something done, I can still pick up the ball on that, but I'm not sensing that.
That's all.
Okay, thank you, thank you, John. Anyone else have anything?
I have,
Yes, Judy.
I have a question that isn't exactly on topic, so, and it's a question of Chad, so maybe he can answer it at the end when, if none of the rest of you are interested, but I've been hearing, stuff all over the map about what's happening with the elk, and I'd love to get an update on here.
Chad, would you like to address that?
Sure. We have taken some phone calls with some people that were concerned, seems to be kind of a group of people anyway, that were concerned with where the elk went. You know, why have they disappeared from the city of Dearborn, as it seems? And we're not sure exactly, you know, what's going on, but we have some ideas. We've talked, and we've had some members talk to Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, Paul Atwood. And really, this is the time of year where the herd kind of disperses and does not hang out together because they are calving right now. And they kick the men out during the calving season. So they split up into bachelor herds and then individual females kind of around the community. So that's kind of what's going on now. In addition to, we have the start of rut. So when rut happens, the herds do just kind of split up again and break apart. And then during the winter time, typically they come back together, and stay as a group. We had at one point, we estimate maybe up to 160 elk that were in town. And it seems like the elk are not as frequent as they used to be. And people have been asking, well, why is that, other than those reasons that I already explained? There are a couple of things going on, is that there is hunting going on of the elk in this local herd. That's happening north of Gearhart on private property, where the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife Group is given damage tags to property owners north of us, because these elk are taking grazing pasture land from horses, damaging horses, fences, that sort of thing. So Department of Fish and Wildlife issues damage tags to those kind of properties. The way damage tags work is that then those tags sit with that property, and licensed hunters with hunting licenses and hunting tags for elk can then go and take an elk. And it's been estimated that over the last 3 years, there's between 40 and 50 elk that have been taken through this hunting program. And so what happens is these hunters hunt, Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife sometimes monitors what's going on along with state police to make sure things are safe. And these people safely take an elk with their tags, they take them home, they butcher them and put them in the freezer. So that was part of the plan that came up with the Declaration of Cooperation during the whole elk process that we spent 3 years working with. And there was a lot of people on that group and a lot of professionals that were helping us through that process. Just to kind of give you an idea of some of the people that were involved in that was, of course, the City of Gearhart, National Park Service, Columbia River Estuary Study Task Force, North Coast Land Conservancy, Warrenton, Potsdam County, Department of Fish and Wildlife, Department of Transportation, Gearhart Golf Links, Military Department, North Coast Regional Solutions, Hunters Associations, Park and Recreation Department for the state of Oregon, and a bunch of others that were all in this process for 3 years to try to determine what was going on. And what they came up with essentially is that there are some things that communities can do to help protect the citizens from elk, but it's mostly what the citizens can do to stop the elk from coming onto their property, i.e. planting vegetation, maybe putting up some fencing and that sort of thing. But we have seen less elk around here. The other probability is that the amount of people that have moved into town over the last few years has significantly changed the environment, so that the elk are probably not as comfortable as they used to be. More cars, more people, and that's evident in the amount of people that are moving into their second homes. And the census that we just had from 2010 to 2020, we estimate that there's probably an additional between 500 and 800 people in Gearhart than there was 5 years ago. So, and properties are being built on, vacant lots, things that used to kind of be a corridor for some of the elk have been filled in because of the amount of building that's been happening as well. So that's our estimations. We don't think we have anything really historic. And also the growing season up in the hills have been really good this year, according to Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. So when that happens, the elk tend to stay up and eat the fresh vegetation that's up in the hills. It's when that gets sparse, they really also push down to here to get our landscaping and eat that. So that's kind of what I know.
Are they all females that they're taking?
I'm not sure, but I think they're mostly females that they're taking during this process.
What I've heard from a couple of different places, it seems like one of these rumors that's growing, that they're killing all the cows. They're gonna kill all the cows to cull the herd. And I've heard that from, a couple different places, so it struck me as a rumor that was really building.
And there is some
I
culling.
assume you've heard that as well.
Well, there's some culling going on, but they're doing that through the hunting portion of things. And some of these tags may be used for Americans with Disability hunting tags, youth hunting tags, and otherwise bad hunter tags. People have never been able to fill their hunt. But I think they're monitoring it. It took about 20 over the last couple of years per time, so maybe up to 40. And they're trying to right size the herd, and at one point they won't offer those anymore, especially as the herd numbers come down to some sort of level that's manageable.
What
That's
is
what
that
we're-
manageable number though?
That's really up to Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. What they wanted to do is make this attempt, do some calling and see what the improvement is. So I'm not sure at what point do they stand back and watch what's happening. But they are taking note of what's going on right now and they're involved. So I really can't answer that. I don't know.
I can say that elk visit our neighborhood on a regular basis.
Yeah, they're still around,
They're still out there,
I've seen them too.
but, and so,
just not the numbers that they used to be, or at least in the herd size.
But-
And frequently these herds even break apart and don't come together for a couple of years. And then
we
they
used
go
to
back
only see spikes, but now we're seeing ones with multiple, 5, 6.
Just beautiful bulls.
And they're beautiful, but,
Are they singular though? Like I had a single bull.
oh, we have probably 15, 16 go through together, very nice.
And during rut, you're gonna see single bulls. They're pushed
Yeah.
out of the herd.
Yeah, but, no, usually we see them more than just one.
Yeah.
But, yeah. All right, anything else from the commissioners? Yes, Don?
I don't know if this is the place for this, but I talked to Chad about, the Gerhard by the Sea condo development. There's many different properties there, and they did some landscaping, and they placed 2 large boulders on what seems to me to be the easement of the street, where commonly 3 cars will park there. And I don't know who should be looking into that, but it's taken away some parking spots across from the golf course and the hotel and condos, which gets really busy in the summer. And it seems to me that that is public parking, since it's on the street.
So is it the street right away? I mean, I know police often come out and do things about that, but I don't know. I haven't seen it, so. Are you familiar with this, Chad?
Yes, I am. When I got to receive the call, I didn't immediately go out there and take a look. I'm gonna pull something up here, but I did look just the other day and noticed where this was at. I'm having problems with the mapping system. Thank you. Reset key here.
Do you think it was for a clear vision thing, like?
I have no idea. It looks like it's in the public area.
No, I have actually talked to one of the owners of one of the units there, so it's the far north unit. The kind of the blue two-story one, and there's an electrical junction box there, and there's all sorts of stuff, so that it seems to me to make it that public right of way thing. And then what I heard was that somebody on their board didn't like people parking there, didn't like golfers parking,
Sound like.
and whatnot, and
But that would probably be something for code enforcement. Or for the police to take care of, I would think, that if it is indeed an issue. It wouldn't be for
Sure.
us.
Right. But our code enforcer and our police are here, so.
I know, and I keep trying to kind of get a comment, it's not working too well.
Yeah, when I looked at it, I was concerned, so we'll look into it further.
Okay.
I would love to pull up a map and just show you where
Okay.
this is at, but it's not working.
I think we got the idea.
Okay,
Thank you.
but we'll take a field trip out to.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else from any of the other commissioners? Okay, moving ahead, visitors' comments, not related to the agenda, do I have any comments from any visitors today? All right, we have no public hearings, so we have.
Hi,
Yes,
this
sorry.
is Michael Horde, and I talked to Terry Graff
Just,
about,
whoa,
sorry,
you need, I can't see you, Michael, I have no visibility, I am sorry. If you could please give your name, your address. Here we go. There you are, we need your name and address for our records, thank you.
yeah, I apologize, sorry about that. This is Michael Hord and last name Hoard. And I'm in Lake Oswego. I'm at 13095 Princeton Court, Lake Oswego, Oregon 97035. And I have a joint property on Ocean Avenue at the South Ocean down there, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah, thank you. So I talked to Terry Graff. I was just walking. He and his wife were out walking, and we talked about traffic, and I just wanted to contribute when that topic comes up later.
did you have a comment to make about traffic? Because it's not on our agenda, we would not be talking about traffic tonight, but if you had something that you would think that would interest us, then this is your chance to
Oh,
say
I
it.
see. Okay, thank you. Yeah, yeah, Terry thought that this might be an agenda item, but just the comment is, I've talked to Chad in the past, and we did have some folks speeding, and one car collided with our house, and broke a big planter box, and then damaged a brick wall, and was driving very erratic, and but there were two different incidences, and I filed a police report then. So I just wanted to contribute to that discussion that Terry said he was also very concerned, and I look forward to that discussion when that happens. So.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
For joining us.
Since my name was, I want to
Yes, Terry.
clarify. I walk every morning around the golf course, and then at night, Kathy and I walk down to Little Beach. And I have noticed speeding in this town has really picked up. When the north end, they leave McMinimans, they go down that corner curve. A lot of those cars are going 45, 50 miles an hour. And when we walk down to Little Beach in the afternoon, the curves there, there are cars flying around there. And also in the morning, I drive from Safeway to Bud's, I go 40 and 45, there are cars flying by me. And I told him that we have an opportunity, he has an opportunity to come and speak on things that are not on the agenda. And I said he should come and talk about it. And I was even going to plant comments under commissioners, talk about where is Jeff Bowman. I can remember when I got a ticket or stopped up on Marion for going 27 to 25. And you guys need to start patrolling. It's only time until somebody gets badly hurt, because cars are flying around.
Well, I can tell you this for a fact, Jeff Bowman is retired.
I know that.
And he never wants to see
You
anything
get
more about the police.
But I think the police need to be more concerned about the speeding. I don't know if anybody else has noticed it, but I walk a lot and I see it and I don't like it.
I would agree.
Did you want to say anything?
Well, all I can add to this is we're out there every day stopping cars for speed. Jeremiah and I have stopped cars today. We've been up on your highway and on the highway. We're putting in the time, but we've only got so many people.
I hope I don't get your first ticket for
Or walking too fast.
She's on his license plate number.
I know where it is.
I drive a white pickup like the rest.
Do speed bumps, slow people down at all?
Potentially. They can also have very fast people driving over them and damaging the vehicles.
And then it would also be reduced for emergency services, situation. And then where do you stop and where do you start? We could do speed bumps on some of the major lanes around here, but had a lot of neighbors asking for that. What we do is we put the speed trailer out.
Mhm.
The speed trailer does help, but it also tells the truth. You know, and those reports that come from the speed trailer are quite eye-opening in regards to the amount of traffic that comes through. The speeding that we perceive has not come up in those speed trailers. The average speed generally in Gearhart has been under the speed limit. But there are outliers. And those outliers are rotten because there's some of them that are, we've even caught somebody going, I think the top speed was 112. And it's because you put a speed trailer out there and they're going for the record, right?
Oh, geez.
It's a mindset of those people with fast cars apparently. But we're gonna be moving the trailer around and we're gonna take it out to, we've got it right now on J Street. We're gonna put it on Cottage and then we'll put it again on Gearhart Loop, up and down that area. And I do have some past information, but it's just striking that the average speeds in Gearhart are typically 1 to 2 miles per hour below. But there are speeders out there.
It's
And it's getting more prevalent.
Of course.
And we're getting more cars. You know, that's another piece that speed trailer shows, it counts cars in both directions. And so we'll be moving that around. You'll see that tomorrow, as a matter of fact.
Okay, thank you. So let's move ahead. We have unfinished business. Our tree planting ordinance discussion, tree planting process, tree permitting process discussion. Okay, so we're down to the tree permitting process discussion. And when we left the last meeting, and I want to say this has been going on since April. We're up to 6 months on this. You know, we did kind of agree that we didn't really need to change our ordinance. We were more concerned about the permitting and to have some control over it. Because I think my take on what it was, I know there was the discussion about whether to measure around the circumference or go the diameter. Of course, the diameter can always be translated to the circumference. So that being said, Chad and Angelina gave us a document with their proposed.
Well, hey, just a second, I disagree that we're done.
Okay,
With
that's what my take was, and that was what the minutes, and that was the line thing. Okay, so you wanna go back to the ordinance, all right, then go ahead, Russ.
Okay, well, I know that at the end of the last meeting, well, you know, John and I had monkeyed with this ordinance from
Yeah.
April till now. And, your final comment, if my memory is correct, is that you thought we had eliminated some of the content or the specifics in the way that we rewrote this. And I didn't think we had. And plus, I don't want to leave the ordinance in place, which I think is kind of flawed and language is stilted and repetitive and et cetera. I don't want to leave that in place and then come up with permit. That's a brand new item. So I would like to, if anybody agrees, then I think some of my edits came back. So that's one of the documents we got. I don't know how it feels about it. If I have any valid responses there, or and that's where I'm at.
Russ, sorry, can you explain what the
Yes,
red and the blue highlights are, please? Like, is that from you?
Well, okay, the blue highlights are left over from a previous meeting, and I don't know exactly what they are. The red highlights are what I put in there in the last couple of weeks and gave to Angelina. She then emailed, and then we're looking at them, and all they were was, you know, the initial thing that John and I did had to do with we had 1, 2, 3, and 4 with various, conflicting or at least repetitive, I felt, information included in those 1, 2, 3, and 4. So all I did was take the revised edition, which we left off at the last meeting. I put some red marks only to clean up a couple of language things that I thought came up at the meeting, but. So the red marks are mine, the blue are from some previous.
They were, I think they were attached to comments. and
Yeah, the blue and the red are still exactly what was, the highlighted ones are what was there before.
Russ, may I?
Yes, John?
Russ, the only thing that I want to just point out, and I agree that you can't add the permitting process without revising the ordinance to refer to the permitting process there. So we have to connect them, I agree completely. The only thing I wanted to point out is that I had thought at the last meeting that, and there was some confusion as to where it came from, but G, or the environmental assessment, that stuff was definitely disputed by the rest of the commission. So I think we didn't agree last month that G should stay in there. There was a whole hot topic on G, that where did it come from, and where did the language come from, we knew where the language came from. So that's my only addition. I concur with you that we need to connect the permit to some change in the language here, so that we connect the permitting process to our provision.
I guess my memory is different, and I go to what Chad sent out, where the planning commission advised that the ordinance should not be altered at this time. Rather, the process should be developed that allows people to cut trees while ensuring compliance with the ordinance. And I thought we had ruled out a permitting process for the first 5 trees, that somebody would still be allowed to cut 5 trees without getting a permit, that there was some sort of tracking process that had been put in place. And what also confuses me, I have a draft proposal dated September 5th, which pretty much sets forth what we agreed to at the last meeting. And then I have a second one, September 13th, draft proposal that sets out a lot about permitting. And then a couple days ago, I get a third document that's the edits that go back to the original one. So the first one pretty much sets forth what we agreed to at the last meeting, but the second one and the third one get back into a permitting process, which I thought when we said we weren't going to alter the ordinance, that we weren't going to require a permit for the first 5 trees.
Well, to me, we have to have a permit. I mean, if you don't have a permit for the first 5 trees, then nobody has a way to track who's cutting trees.
Well, we talked about that, and that there's something that could go out that people could report when they're gonna cut a tree, why they're doing it, their address, you've got a list of things that they have to report to the city. That's in draft proposal 1. And then what proposal 2 has done is taking those things that went from just reporting and tied that to a permitting process, which could be denied or approved. And I thought we had done away with that permitting process, it was just a reporting process.
Well,
Chad, how do you remember it?
Well, just so we're all on the same page here, there were 3 versions of this in your packet.
Yeah,
One was the one that I did, and then the 2 others are correspondence from outside.
and who did they come from?
One came from Carol Connell, and the other came from Tom Teets.
How do they get an opportunity to
They looked at the packet prior to
It was-
this.
get it directly from the packet?
Submitted,
Right.
I
resent.
see.
So they were just submitted as
So the one day,
Suggestions, yes. Here,
One
we
day
saw
is-
this, let's put our stamp on it.
the one dated September 13th came from Carol.
Right, yes, the one where her name's right on top.
Yep,
Oh, it is.
one from September 8th was from
So-
Tom Teets.
So what Carol has done for us and is gone, even though she's retired as our planning director, she still is interested in what we're doing and took some time to make comment. And I found that some of her comments were well placed. Because there were some gaps here. My preference is we take this in 2 steps. We take care of Russ's issue with changing the ordinance? Do we want to change the ordinance? Or I don't know how to do this. I know that we need to move it on. And I'm looking for some kind of consensus, some kind of agreement where we can move it from where we are. We do not want to keep going around and around.
Well, I thought according to Chad's letter, the last meeting, we had a consensus that the ordinance should not be altered at this time.
I believe that was the
But we
consensus.
didn't have a consensus by voting, we had a consensus by, you basically, at the end of the meeting, said
I was trying to summarize what we had.
you felt that John and my revision left something out. That's what I thought, that you indicated. Or left some vacancies.
No, that was, I'm sorry, that was not really what I meant. As I listened to everyone, my feeling was that we have an ordinance. The only thing that we don't have in this is any way to track, to know how many trees are coming down, any way to keep track of that. And that was a concern about the permitting process. That when we make changes, of course, it's the beginning to having to have a public meeting and go through that process, then moving it on to city council, and that takes a long time. And my real thing is, Russ, we just need to have consensus or agree or vote or however you'd like to do it, so we can just get from where we are. We've got the thing of the tennis courts and pickleball coming up next month. Not
Well, that's
next month.
fine. I'm telling you what I felt.
Yeah.
If we want to vote now to leave it with the open, that's fine with me. I'm just saying where I was coming from.
Garrett or Chad, if we put in a permitting process, then do we need to have a public hearing? What do we need to do?
Yeah, we would.
I wanna make sure that we're.
So I'll speak to it. So if you want to amend your ordinance, then you absolutely public hearings are required.
Okay.
My recollection of the last discussion was you had recommended that the city create administrative procedures that will attempt to track tree cutting activity. And Chad's proposal seemed to reflect that. And even though I forget if it referred to itself as a permit, but it shouldn't.
Okay.
It should be, it would be without amending the ordinance, that form would essentially be a voluntary form that you're asking people to fill out, and the only burden that's on the public for complying is what's already stated in the ordinance, that if they want to cut the fifth tree, well, then they need to come in for an actual permit, and that's the planning commission's decision on whether or not to grant it. Unless you amend the ordinance, I think that's at the end of the day, that's what's required of people. That being said, having administrative procedures where you're asking people, look, you need to keep track of the trees you're cutting down. The planning commission could take into consideration whether people have been diligent and forthright about their activities when they do come in for the fifth tree, for permission for cutting the fifth tree, to help incentivize participation in tracking that information. But if you want to make it required that people actually fill that out, and say that's like the smaller version of a permit, right? That staff issue a permit for cutting one tree, I think that requires an ordinance amendment, and therefore that would also require hearings.
I can read the relevant minute portions of this if you'd like to. That's up to you.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion.
All right, go, Terry's making a motion.
I make a motion that the ordinance should not be altered at this time and that the city develop an administrative procedure to track the trees that are cut.
All right, Terry has made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Don has seconded. Do we have any discussion? Yes, John.
Quite unclear how we got to the point where we have such different perspectives as to what we talked about last month. But regardless, the fact that what Chad developed here is exactly what I thought he would develop, which is a permitting process. Suggests that we at least left Chad with the impression that what we expected was a permitting process. So my perspective, like, I think like Russ, although I don't share with Russ concerns about the importance of it, all of the changes that we have in here, they're not that important to me, but I do completely agree with Russ that the intent, I thought, was to start permitting at the 1 tree level, not restricting, not changing the restriction level, still 5 trees, but that the tracking process was not intended to be voluntary, but intended to be required.
And to me, the whole Carolina, sorry, the purpose was to assist the staff in having a tracking mechanism so that they can know what's going on. So that when they get a call, hey, somebody's cutting down a tree right across the street from my house, they're not taken like, oh, you know, but they can respond to it. Oh yeah, we permitted it and blah, 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 whatever. But that was the whole purpose to me, was to put something in place that was of assistance to the staff and frankly, anybody else who's monitoring and cares about trees. Once you're gathering some data, you have some data. If you're not doing any of that, you have nothing.
Yes, John.
And just to kind of reinforce that point, I don't think that a voluntary process is going to generate any useful data. I think it'll be ignored. I don't know if you have any other examples of voluntary compliance with forms that have to be filled out when you do something.
Garage sales.
Well, it's voluntary until you get caught.
We have.
Same as following the speed limit.
Okay. All right, yes, Don.
First off, I want to say thank you to John Rust for putting the effort into this. We have been working on this a long time, and to actually change the ordinance, it would probably change one word. Then it has to go to the public hearing and city council and that kind of stuff. So if the most efficient way would be to keep the ordinance, but as Terry said in his motion, to have an administrative method. Now, we can call it a permit, we can call it a sign-up sheet or an administrative method, so that the city gets the data that you're interested in, we're interested in. I think that's the method to solve this, put this to bed, and let the community, let the homeowners do what they have always been able to do, but find a way to give the city the information they need.
Well, I don't disagree with that part, and I'm not trying to be as restrictive, maybe as everybody thinks I'm trying to be, but still, if we have an administrative notification or a permit, whatever we call it, it still should be in the ordinance somewhere. Or the guy who's cutting his tree down says, well, you're supposed to come over here and tell the city hall. Well, who's told me? Nobody told me to, unless it's here. So, you know, I don't want to complicate the thing and say we have public hearings, or maybe that's, I mean, it's kind of a new thing, whether it's going to be an authorization or a permit. If it's a new thing, maybe it requires the process.
I have a procedural question. Should my motion be voted down, then the alternative is to come up with language to amend the ordinance And then we have to have a public hearing on that language before we vote on that change. Is that correct? I mean, we couldn't vote on it tonight,
Yes,
so.
we would, if your motion was voted down, then we could have a motion to change this, to propose a change. I think that's the word I need to use, is to propose a change. And then we would have to have a public hearing on it. Angelina would have to put out notification in the paper and the newspaper, all that, that's required. Then we have the public hearing, and then we hear it, and then we would vote to, yes, go ahead with it, and we would on it to city council.
Right.
Or not move it to city
And when
council.
we have our public hearing, they will have the language actually in front of them.
Yes,
So if
Yes.
this goes down, you're gonna have to vote to propose a change, and then somebody's gonna have to write the clean language for the new ordinance that we goes out to the public, and we have a public hearing on it.
There'd be two of them.
yeah, there'd be two public hearings?
Well, if it's changing an ordinance, is there a public hearing in the planning commission?
There's a public hearing in the planning commission, there's a public hearing in the city council.
There'd be two.
It's not up there, it's actually, but I put them on higher level, sorry about that. And quite frankly, we could change. If there was a redundancy, you know, that when John and Russ did it there in that first, I think it was under 2, there was a redundancy. For some reason, they said the same words, but not exactly the same words. But there would be a place under D1, is that where I'm seeing it, under D, residents are allowed with a permit to cut up to 5 trees in a 12-month period. And that's, we could change it like that too. Yes, John?
Well, what we could do is, first of all, after the discussion, we'll have to vote, obviously.
Yes, it's still back there, it's still back there.
And if it's approved, if the motion's approved, then we're done with that. But if it's denied, then we could do is Russ and I could go back and make the most simple change we possibly could to just connect it to the permitting process.
And maybe we could do that tonight. Maybe we could put the words.
We'd have to get a fresh original copy, because this is not our original copy anymore.
Got piles of them.
Well, you're suggesting we go back to what's currently, what the
I
current,
think that's what John is suggesting.
I'm just worried that we've got so much going on. so many
Right.
moving parts.
well, I agree, I think we just go with what's on the books and add a clause.
Add that.
Exactly.
Okay, so Don, you had your hand raised.
I'll tell you, if I wanna cut some trees down, which I'm going to, I would voluntarily provide that information to the city, and I think what we're actually dealing with is like a public relations or a marketing kind of situation, where if the city somehow got information out to the community, like, hey, we're gonna try to track these things, there's no money involved or no anything like that, well, if you would, please submit this information and maybe try that for a couple of years or something and see where we get, and then if we have to revisit it because it's not working or it gives us the data, then we'll know, but I think there's a way to sell it. To just like, hey, let's try to help get some info.
So my motion includes an administrative procedure to do just that.
Right, so any other discussion?
I just have one
Yes,
question
Pauline.
for the staff. So does that work for you all if we don't change the ordinance? And we instruct you to finish up your administrative process?
Let me answer it by taking us back just a little bit. I'm just gonna take a few highlights from the minutes that we had and how we ended up here. So we talked about concerns about proposed changes and not trying to be too restrictive. We talked about the implementation of a simplified permitting process to enhance communication. We talked about feedback on the criteria, you folks gave us some ideas, and we included that on these. Some commissioners expressed concern that the changes might make it more challenging, so we discussed that. Documentation of tree removal, the absence of a formal documentation process for tree removals was highlighted as an issue, which underscored the need for the introduction of a permitting system. We talked about the clarification for safety hazards. We talked about addressing health impact concerns. The criteria of necessity, we talked about safety hazards as a blanket term. And then for a potential for more in-depth permitting process, there's also a suggestion to incorporate additional details in the permitting process, which could involve adding criteria related to health, poisonous trees, or other specific concerns. The objective was to keep the permitting process flexible while ensuring the city can collect essential information about tree removals. Talked about clarity and tracking. The importance of clarity and data collection emerged as the key goals for the proposed changes. Commissioners expressed the need to have clearer understanding of how many trees were being cut, the reasons behind the removals, and whether or not they were within designated riparian areas. So the next steps that we got out of the minutes was the discussion ended with an agreement to proceed with the development of a permitting process, allowing flexibility for tailored tracking needs. This process would aim to maintain the current ordinance's framework while introducing necessary clarifications for data collection measures. Participants acknowledged that further discussions and refinements would be required before moving forward with these changes, and that there was no immediate rush to complete the revised ordinance. So in summary, we took those ideas, we put together the permitting process. So this was designed to be a permit. I can understand voluntary in the hopes that we would collect some data. I think we would get very little data, but we would get some. I think that people will just, kind of continue to move forward. But if we kept the ordinance just like it is, with the exception of adding, and the staff can do this and present it to you, adding a sentence that says that a permit is required and the permit is available at City Hall. City staff using this process will design a permit, and people would come in, fill that out, potentially pay a fee for our time, and then we would go ahead and get out there and collect the necessary data and issue the permit. And so that was our understanding, and so that's why we came up with this draft process. And then you did reserve making changes in the future.
Okay. So Chad's giving us clarity, yes, Russ?
So if you put, but a permit is required in this current ordinance, does that require?
Yes,
whole Marion?
yes.
So we would come to you with this permitting process, we'd come to you with language that says that a permit would be necessary and the change in that ordinance, and then you would approve that to move forward to a public hearing. We would have that. Then we take it to the city council, public hearing, and then they would make a decision. And that's just the way that all changes made. Yeah, you folks are quasi judicial, not legislative, so you can't make any changes to them, but you can make recommendations.
And most likely, a public hearing, for those of you that have not participated in public hearing, a public hearing on putting a permit required in this would probably not have a wide participation from the city. Most of them would, maybe one or two comments, realistically. I'm just saying that it would not be a big thing, I do not think, would you probably agree with
It
that?
wouldn't be a fire station.
It would not be a fire station.
I've said that before, Virginia.
I know.
I don't like jinxing it.
Okay, everyone's gonna, but, we've done public hearings before, we've done well, we've moved on, so. Any other comments from any commissioners? So we have a motion on the floor. Terry, would you please restate it the best you can?
The best I can, that the ordinance should not be altered at this time, with the exception of adding or not adding to the ordinance, but the city would have an administrative procedure to track the trees that are cut.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Can I, wait a minute. Can you say
I-
aye in your name, please?
Terry, say your name.
Aye.
Terry. Don.
Aye, Don.
All those opposed, say no.
No.
So there's the
Paulina,
Russell.
John,
Jenny? All right. That motion having gone down, do we have another motion?
I move that we,
John?
I so move that we let Chad proceed with his offer, which is to, with all the input he's received from various people, firm up the permit application and the very minor language to be changed in the ordinance that would allow the permit to be effective.
All right, and this would be effective for the first tree? That's the.
Correct,
okay.
but the limit is
Any-
still 5.
Any trees,
Right.
we still want to have a permitting, okay. So John's made a motion for Chad to add the words or rewrite the words in the ordinance that would require a permitting process for removal of any trees. Have I restated the way you want it?
That's fine, yeah.
Okay. Do I have a second to this?
Second.
Second from Polina. Is there any discussion about this?
So what's the
Yes,
procedure?
Jerry.
Then Chad will provide us with the language, and then that will go out, and we'll have a public hearing on it.
We will see it we would be able to see it next month. And we would say, yes, that works, and then we'll have the public hearing in November. Is that,
I believe, is it?
No,
Is
I
it
think
what it is? Yeah.
that'll work.
okay,
That'll work. We'll have to check with staff just to make sure.
all right,
And it's not just gonna be me doing it. I've got the wizards of smart that work for me here that will help me come up with
All right.
language.
all right.
And my comment would be that it's already in this draft, pretty much the way we want it, under Part D requirements.
6D, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
start with D in the D1 of the ordinance, and you're almost there.
Yes, it's few words, yes. Great, yes, Don.
Can I vote for both motions?
Yes, you can vote, you can only vote once for each motion though.
So when they bring the language to us in October, it'll just be a clean, not with edits and ins and outs, it'll be the language.
Yes, yes. Yes, that is the intention, absolutely, Terry. Any other comments? All those in favor, say aye. All opposed, say no.
No,
Got it? All right. Thank you, everyone. Chad, you have some work. Nothing better to do. What else do we have on the agenda today? We have no new business. Do we have any other concerns of the commission? You're not the commission.
But I've got a concern.
Chad.
According to our records, we're gonna have some planning commission spaces coming up here soon. Potentially 3 positions. So I was asked earlier, what does that mean? It looks as though typically we reappoint our commissioners in December. The commissioners 4-year terms end on the end of November. So that we would anticipate the commissioners that are for the election or deciding not to come back to still come to the November meeting. And then after that meeting, we would be done. We would go through a process within the city council to collect applications from folks. And then those applications would be given to the mayor of the city council. The mayor would make suggestions or motions to appoint someone, and the city council would then vote on that. In the past, there's been 2 different ways that this has happened. There have been times where we've had applications on file and with people that the council was interested in appointing, so we did not collect any further applications because we wanted to use those, and some of you are here because of that. Or that we start a process where we just accept applications and consider all those applications, and then the mayor has the ability to either appoint somebody who's already here or to appoint somebody new, or to fill a vacancy. So that's kind of how it goes. So those will be coming up here soon, but I would anticipate in November that those of you that are up for election, which I think, according to our records, is Terry, Russ, and John. Would be up for this particular period of time, I think because of your appointment. Or my records might not be
No,
correct.
you're right.
Okay.
Was I appointed to fill somebody else's for
Yes.
Position
as opposed to a news, yeah.
Yeah. So, when the application process comes on, it would be good for the, mayor and council to know whether or not you are interested, in moving forward, and, they may or may not require you to fill out another application, but, I'll let you know.
So you'd like that decision by when?
We're gonna be putting out, for the applications in November, and then probably, and then making end of October, beginning of November, and then making the decision in December.
So if any of these people wanted to do it, they could just ask you for an application and say, hey, I really wanna be reappointed, can I just fill it out now?
Yes. Exactly, thank you, Clement. Well, he's got some experience there.
Any other comment, concerns of the commission? We don't have, the land use attorney here. Thank you, Garrett, for joining us again. The meeting is adjourned at 7:10. We will all see you next month.
Thank you, volunteers.
Thank you, staff.